So Gary, thanks so much for joining us today. I'm really pleased you could come along and chat to us about your leadership journey. And as someone who's been in the sector for quite a while, I thought it would be useful just to share some of that, kind of how you met, how you decided that you wanted to move up the ladder, and I guess how you got into that space. So let's start from now and go backwards. You're obviously at Blue Triangle just now. 2.5 years, roughly?
Yes. Scary how fast time goes in when you're having fun.
You're enjoying yourself, yep.
I do.
And so tell us a little bit about the reason you wanted to leave, or you wanted to move on to Blue Triangle from Glasgow Council on Alcohol.
Absolutely. I think a thing that always concerns me in any leadership role is a kind of fear of stagnancy. And I think I had been at GCA probably about 10 to 12 years, maybe, thereabouts.
It's a good tenure.
So it was a good era that I had been with them. And what I was really concerned about is that you get to that point where you're starting to worry that, well, what if I'm stagnant? What if the organisation needs fresh eyes coming in and starting to see things again? And that was just about the same time as somebody had approached me to see if I would be interested in the Blue Triangle position, because for me, Blue Triangle was like the perfect storm of all of the things I'd ever done in the third sector all in one. So there was the housing and homelessness aspect, there was working with individuals that have been impacted by addictions, obviously homelessness issues, complex mental health needs, as well as wider family issues. So for me there was a lot of kind of everything together in the one organisation, and I'd known Blue Triangle for my entire career. Both of us born in 1975, so that was important. Twins. So I think that was what attracted me to Blue Triangle in the first place. And I think kind of leaning into what you were saying as well about almost the leadership aspect of these things, for me, what's really important is, and it's very cliched, but you do something that you care about, that you want to make a difference in. And that to me is what's always driven me in my career. I think all the way through pretty much everything I've done over the past 25 or so years, which has been in this field, has always been effectively building up the skills in this sector. So, you know, people always say when you do a job you love, you never work a day in your life, and you do work, but you enjoy it. And I think that's the difference. You know, I never have one of those days that I'm thinking, oh God, I need to go into my work tomorrow, or oh God, I've got another. I'm always looking forward to it. Right, okay, what do we need to do this week? What's going on, and who am I speaking to? Who are we catching up with? What more can we do? And I think when you're driven by the motives about improving aspects of other people's lives, I think that's a really strong driver. And that's what always pushed me up the chain, if you want to think about it like that as well. You know, back in the day when I first started as a support assistant, and you know, I was earning like $6,000 a year as a support assistant. So I had taken quite a pay drop to go into this sector, but I had realised I really enjoyed working with people more, so I wanted to do something more directly involved in that. And then quite quickly I realised what I was doing with this one individual. I thought, but actually others were all doing this to this same level, we could probably all make a big impact. So that encouraged me to go for the next level up, which was managing that department or that area, whatever we want to call it at the time. And then it was like, right, okay, now that I've got to that, I can see I need to be a bit more involved in X. And then as the years went on, every time I'd say, oh, if I could only get a wee bit more involved in that, I could do more. And that's, before you know it, you realise that actually being the boss is less stressful than being under a boss that you might not feel is working in the right direction, or you can see opportunities in it. That to me, I find that more frustrating. I'd rather be responsible, but at least be able to then, you know, make mistakes, absolutely, but at least you've got a bit of rationale behind them, if that makes sense.
And did you have a plan then of when you joined? You know, obviously you made a conscious move into the third sector. You know, and it's quite nice when you get to that point now, you're like, well, actually all of those things I loved about it came together, and you're in that place where everything, you know, you can kind of make that work for you. And was it a conscious move to get to being a chief exec or a director or anything like that, or was it a case of you kind of followed the opportunities that were there, or did you make that happen?
No, I absolutely made it happen. I realised reasonably early on in my career, although to be fair, I never anticipated going as far as I've ended up going. I think it's because initially I was only ever looking at the next step. So it was until I became more strategically aware that, do you know what, I need to be able to make a wider change in standardised practice. And I did that in my first small charity, which was down in Ayr. And I really enjoyed that, and I enjoyed that autonomy. The fact that I could be having, and that's what I love about the third sector, is it's very dynamic. So I love the fact that you can go in and have a conversation with a commissioner or a local authority or a funder, and you're bringing direct issues to them and saying, look, this is what we've identified with the people we're supporting, here are the gaps, here's some solutions that I've got for that, are you interested? And often they find that your solutions are meeting their objectives. So actually you're helping the commissioners, we're all working towards the same goals. It's just about reframing how you're bringing that. And I think that's what I saw in leadership as well, is that ability to kind of come up and take those opportunities. And that's when I'd realised, no, I needed to move into that more directoring role. And then from that, it was the CEO post became more obvious, because it was like, actually that's the role I need to be in order to have that autonomy to make the decisions for the organisation.
And what kind of, if there are any, it might not be, but what do you think the kind of main skills or the main type of person you think, or what do you need to be a really good chief exec in the third sector? I think we all know, the sector's in a challenging place at the moment. Some organisations are challenged more than others, of course, but to have that real kind of, what is the thing that makes someone good at leading an organisation through these kind of challenging times?
That's a great question. And I think, in my experience, I would actually say emotional intelligence is, honestly, would say the highest thing that's required. Because to genuinely lead a team, it's not about management at CEO level. At CEO level, it is leadership. So your goal is that your immediate team are all better than you at their jobs. That's the point. You should be gathering a team of really skilled individuals and empowering them to be able to do the job that you've asked them to come in and do. And in order to, I guess, get the best from those people, for them to feel confident and empowered to do their role, you need to understand them, and they need to feel safe and supported. And I think that's more important than most aspects of the role, because being able to hear them when they're telling you that they've got a problem, whether it's personal life, whether it's in the job, whether it's a concern about your direction, either then that to me would maybe mean that I've not been clear enough about the wider strategy and how I hope to get there, so that's something I need to pay attention to. But it could also be that they've maybe identified an issue that completely I've missed, but that's the point. So they need to feel safe, supported and encouraged to be completely open and honest. So I think the emotional intelligence about how person A works versus person B, there isn't a clean management tool that's this is how you manage people. People are completely different. And I think particularly in our field where we are working with people for people in a really challenging and emotionally volatile environment at times, every member of the team must feel safe to come to whoever their line manager is, regardless of where they are in the organisation, and vent and be open about what's bothering them, what's upsetting them, what their concerns are, their fears are, and have that safe environment to speak to.
Yeah, and I think there's something in that, isn't there, about, I guess, the chief exec role isn't necessarily about you, it's about the people you're there to support. Absolutely. And why the organisation's there in the first place. Absolutely. Otherwise you wouldn't have a chief exec or a job, would you? No point. But I think, what would your kind of advice be for someone who's kind of maybe where you were, a while back, and thinking, actually I should be a director, and then maybe I should be, the leader and all of this stuff. What would your advice be to someone going after that kind of path?
I think I would always encourage any individual that's keen to do that is to be completely open and transparent within their organisation, that's where they want to be. Any good leader will encourage and embrace that and support that person to move forward. Yeah. If somebody is not encouraging you or embracing that, that's maybe more about their leadership issues. Yeah. So I think that's important to just be aware of as an individual. If that environment isn't working for you, go to an environment that is. Because especially when you're putting so much effort into your career, but also into, particularly in our sector, when you're putting so much effort into, the importance that your organisation has for individuals that depend on you. Yeah. It's so important that people feel valued in the organisation. So if you want to go, then it might be a case of saying, well, this organisation won't be the final place for me because actually there's not enough capacity in here for me to get there. But actually a good leader will want to see their team develop and move on. Yeah. Because they want to see that, but that doesn't mean they're not coming back. I've always said that when I work with good people, go out and get another opportunity elsewhere, that's fine. And in a few years, you might absolutely want to come back because you've now had an opportunity to maybe lead something or a smaller organisation or have that. So I think it's important to just recognise what your own desires are and why you want them. You know, rather than just, I want to be that. It's like, well, why?
Yeah.
What is it that you're going to get out of being a director? And do you want the autonomy? And why do you want that autonomy? What do you think that autonomy will bring you? And being able to recognise that in yourself, I think, would be really important, because then you can develop that and go, okay, this is why I want to do that, and this is how I'm going to get there.
And do you think, I mean, I'm a big fan of people joining third sector boards and looking at other
Absolutely.
organisations and all of that to get, you know, a different perspective. Because, you know, obviously if you're in the one place for a long, long time and haven't looked out anywhere else, then maybe you could help yourself by looking out. And you've obviously been involved in a number of boards and things over the years. And what have you gotten out of being involved in that kind of space? That's
a hugely important point, actually, because, so yeah, you're absolutely right. The good thing about putting your time back into supporting a voluntary organisation or in a third sector in a board is that you learn an awful lot about governance, because that's your job. As a board member, you're not there to run the organisation, you're there to give guidance and support by all means, but fundamentally you're there to make sure that third sector organisation is meeting its charitable aims and objectives and it's achieving its governance. The risk always is to dip into ops, because if you've come from a comparable background, you know, oh, if you do it that way, that's lovely, that's nice to give guidance, but it's not your job to do that. That's a by the by. So I think that helps raise your head up to strategy. What are we saying we're doing, and are we getting there? Are we meeting the objectives that we've set out to achieve? And actually it simplifies things, and I think that helps you look strategically. Often when we're working in the field, you get quite caught up in the immediacy of operations and the firefighting that operations always brings about. And I think that's the advantage of working on boards, helps elevate you up in that regard. And I think why I'm still involved in a number of boards, even though I'm a very busy person, is because I also recognise the value of actually having good board members, and I hope that the people whose boards I'm on feel that. That the idea is that I have brought other skills and experience that, you know, I know it's hard to get people dedicated to volunteer to be on a board, but actually having those opportunities is a great way to network and learn more about other people, learn about other organisations, how strategies are developed. How that looks to a workforce, what does it look like to frontline service users, what does it look like to the individuals that, you know, maybe just a wider part of your organisation, and it gives you that much more rounded experience. And I feel that because I've relied on good boards over the years, that it's like I feel confident that I should give back and also put more back in as well, so that I can provide that, because I know if we're looking for board members, you think, well, it's because it is a lot of work. So it's important, I think, to put it back in as well, because I know you're on some as well. And it can be a lot of work, but this is what I say all the time, it needs to be for an organisation or a cause or whatever that you really believe in and there's a connection to, because sometimes you are doing more work because something happens and you're the person on the board with that set of skills, or that experience, so you're kind of, you know, involved in more stuff than you might be at a normal period or when something else is going on. So I think if you don't love it or you don't really want to be there, it's very obvious very quickly, the board members that are kind of struggling to be there or find their feet.
Find their feet and kind of get into the rhythm of it, because there is a rhythm and it takes time, I think, as well as the other thing. But no, I couldn't agree more. I think boards are just the best thing ever. Actually, that's a really good point to your first question. That was my first engagement with GCA was as a board member. So I was with GCA, I can't remember the exact numbers off the top of my head, it could have been 3 or 4 years on the board. And then there was a change of management and I was moving job, and I said I could do it as an interim, because they'd asked if I could. The board had said, could you do it, because I had the most experience. So I said, okay, I could step off the board and do an interim CEO post for like 3 months. 10 years later. 10 years on, you're still there. Was there, but that actually I would say was a huge skill development point in terms of going from, I'd been a director before that, so that was my first CEO post. But I would say that's a really good way in terms of having that board experience, so that you're able to highlight that you've got governance, direct board work, all of that kind of, so strategy you will have in director capacity, but if you're trying to maybe move up to director, still having that board experience, because then it enables you to evidence and
have enough of an understanding that, so if you're maybe going for an interview for a director level post, you understand governance strongly enough, particularly for third sector organisations, but you understand governance well enough that recognising where the boundaries are, which can be blurred even in an organisation. So if you're going for a job and you can come across as a strong candidate, I think that gives a lot of kind of power to your application.
Absolutely, and I think it shows you've got kind of an outside interest as well, and actually more of an interest in person, just overall.
Yeah.
There's something about
Only the best people are on board.
Exactly, I would agree. So I guess that kind of leadership journey to get wherever it is you're going isn't always just a straight path, is it? There's always kind of, you're all over the place and then something doesn't work and you're depressed for a while and then you get back up. So I guess resilience is a big quality.
Huge.
And what would you say to people who are maybe, because the market at the moment is really competitive. As you'll know, we deal with a lot of chief exec and director stuff.
Yeah.
It's a competitive market. We've got people coming from not the sector who want to get into the sector, people want to move up, people want to move across, and all of those things and more. And what would you say to someone who was kind of trying to get that journey but maybe hadn't got past a couple of interviews, or was getting to the point of thinking, oh, is this the right thing for me? What kind of advice would you give to someone in that kind of
field?
Yeah.
I think that's a great point, because you absolutely will come across that. I think it kind of goes back as well to always take feedback. That's a hugely important point, actually, because, so yeah, you're absolutely right. The good thing about putting your time back into supporting a voluntary organisation or in a third sector in a board is that you learn an awful lot about governance, because that's your job. As a board member, you're not there to run the organisation. You're there to give guidance and support, by all means, but fundamentally you're there to make sure that third sector organisation is meeting its charitable aims and objectives and it's achieving its governance. The risk always is to dip into ops, because if you've come from a comparable, even if you don't agree with it, take it anyway, because the point is, if that's the perspective that someone else has seen from you, even if that wasn't your intent, that gives you something to reflect on, and you can then look at thinking, okay, that was absolutely not what I said. And you think, well, wait a minute, that's what they think I've said.
Yeah.
So, okay, maybe I need to reflect on how I do that. So that gives you a huge amount of learning. Or it might be that you think, yeah, I don't really buy into that, but okay, I'm confident because I still think what I said was okay. So either way, it's still good to just get the feedback from anyone that will give you it. And I think, going back to the point I was kind of thinking about earlier, which was about why you're going for that job in that organisation. Not just, I want to be a director, I don't care where it's my director, or I want to be a CEO, but I don't care where I'm a CEO. It's like, well, that will come across very, very quickly.
Particularly in this sector.
Particularly in this sector where there are so many people who are so dedicated and so caring about their organisation, never mind the role. And I even feel that still as the new boy in Blue Triangle, because there are so many members of the organisation that have been there as 30 odd years. Yeah. Those are people that have dedicated their entire career to this one organisation because they have such a strong belief in what it does. Yeah. So you need to have cognizance of that when you're coming in, and when you're going for jobs, that you recognise all of those people you're meeting and speaking to have all put in so much work and commitment and effort and care to that role. So you're coming in and you're, especially at a leadership role, you need to come in and hear what that is so that you can hopefully then be a representative, because the more senior you are, the bigger your role is as a role model, because you are the face of such an organisation, and you're the one that people are going to turn to, and how you reflect on something can have a big impact on other people. So I think that's all important, to try and gather all that together and learn each time you do apply for something. Yeah, and I guess being that kind of front face or the leader of an organisation can have all different pressures, can't it, that come into it that you probably don't think about when you're applying, even just started. You kind of, something might happen, you think, oh, actually, I'm the accountable person here, especially if you haven't been before. Any advice for people on that? I think what I would definitely say is, if you're coming through the kind of the third sector, and particularly care type of work, which is very heavily regulated, if you've never been involved in regulated work before, I would absolutely encourage you to do research to understand what that means, the amount of regulation, and what that actually means, not only for the organisation but for the people we support, but for you as the leader of that organisation, because you're legally as well as morally, but you're legally responsible for that. So you do have to have enough understanding of what those regulations mean and how you can best evidence that you are working within those regulations to the best of your ability. And I think that's what, again, back to the point about having a really good team round about you and building that team and building that trust and faith so that everybody feels safe and able to come forward, particularly with the regulations. Look, we've got obviously SSSC regulations, care inspectorate regulations, and housing regulations, just to name the top three.
Treble whammy.
Never mind, you've then got Oscar and financial
and
regulations.
And the people you're there to work for and all of those things as well.
So there's so much that you have to be aware of, and the responsibilities that you have as a CEO, for example, or director of an organisation where you are it.
Yeah.
So be aware of that. There isn't the ability to pass the buck.
Yeah.
You need to be aware that you're okay to take that responsibility on, and some people don't feel comfortable with it, and that's okay as well, but that's absolutely fine. But recognise that before you step into that role.
Yeah, that's good advice, I think. I guess the same with joining a board, you've got that responsibility there, which
legally,
it's a legal and a real responsibility that a lot of people, I think, maybe don't even know that before they go in, which is...
I think you're just joining a wee charity board, as if you're just...
It'll be nice, we'll get sandwiches and cake.
Get a wee sandwich and a wee blather and go up the road. It's like, that is true. However, there's a wee bit more behind the scenes as well. And I think, what we've done at Blue Triangle, for example, is with our board members, we've worked closely with them recently, in particular with me being a new member to the organisation, having new board members coming in, is actually trying to work with them to say, well, what would work for you, particularly those that are maybe coming in from totally out of the industry, because it's a huge learning curve for somebody that's never had anything to do with health and social care or housing or even the third sector. But their skills are very valuable, so we do want those individuals to come in. But what do they need to feel confident in the role? Because you see the anxieties even of board members that are, should I be doing that? Do they need to do that? Well, I didn't know about that. And, that decision shouldn't be made. It's like, right, it's finding that, what do you need to know? And what is it that you've delegated authority to the senior team to be able to operate for you?
So I guess to kind of finish off, you obviously love the third sector. You've been in it for a long time and had lots of really interesting jobs. And is there one particular kind of like highlight or something, that's a really good example of not just how great the sector is, but your kind of journey through it?
Probably very selfishly, for me, I get a lot of reward from the work that we do in every time I hear or speak to somebody that's come through any of the services that I've ever been involved in, and we see the huge impact that has had for that person, but also the rollout effect of that. Yeah. That person now has the opportunity to get a bit of stability in their life that they've maybe never had before. Somewhere to live for the first time, somewhere that they feel safe for the first time, somewhere where they've been heard for the first time and going through the complex trauma that individuals have often faced. So for me, on a very selfish level, I get such a reward knowing that I'm helping to achieve that for people, that definitely fuels me and has since ever I first came near the third sector, and I realised, oh my God, this is a different world.
I'm not sure that's a selfish thing, Gary, to be fair, but...
Well, it is, because it's me that's getting I'm getting the joy out of that, knowing that I'm doing those good things. So it's, it's still selfish. I'm selfish. It's still there. It's still in there. Yeah, absolutely. But that's what I would say for me has been my biggest driver, and why I enjoy the third sector. I also like its dynamic kind of face to the third sector, because it moves very quickly, and I enjoy that. I think that's is quite motivating. So,
it's got to be really innovative having it, because you're doing a lot with a lot less than some other organisations. I think people forget that actually to be able to make that work and to be able to help and reach the most amount of people, you've got to be really clever about it.
Yeah, you've got to be kind of agile in your thinking to make sure that you can move something quite quickly, which is, as you say, other organisations either don't need to do that or choose not to do that because they can. The third sector does have to protect itself in a lot of ways as well, but always looking to the people that support as its purpose. Why do we exist? So if we're failing them, there's no point in the organisation existing. So that's always in the back of your mind, that you must push forward to see what you can do to continue your aims, I guess, your aims and objectives as an organisation. Yeah.
And if someone came up to you and said, Gary, I really want to be the chief exec of this third sector organisation, I'm not sure what to do, what would your advice be?
I would definitely say join a board.
Yes.
Because I think that's a huge skills development and learning experience.
Yeah.
But it also gives you the scope to see what CEO and kind of senior leadership means, and from a strategic perspective. So I think actually coming at it from the strategic perspective of a board gives you a huge amount of insight as to what you would need for a leadership role in the third sector.
I agree, that was a good answer.
That's good, excellent.
Thanks very much, Gary.
Thank you very much, lovely to see you.
Cheers.